best word to represent what this episode of The Ancient Magus' Bride delivered would be the word change. Not just showcasing change with our main characters Elias and Chisei, but with just the overall structure and tone that it definitely seems like this final arc is going to deliver with this wonderful series. Now, first things first, let's obviously discuss the biggest moment, or one of the biggest moments, that happens immediately as the episode starts out. We see our man Joseph, and I say our man lightly because this guy's a scumbag, torturing dragons and other creatures alike, and it's a very gloomy, a very dark scene, and a very brutal scene. You see blood, you see stabbing and mutilation, and you see these dragons crying their eyes out, begging to be free and going home, and in just a couple of short minutes, it manages to sell you that this arc is going to be messed up, and there is some bad people at play here. And I think it really nails that feeling of eeriness, which sets up the episode in a pretty interesting way. And it's interesting to say that because a lot of this episode was comedy, and I'm usually a fan of the comedy in this series, but I think this episode went a little too hit me over the head with the comedy. At times it worked, but I felt that other times it was a little hit or a miss. But when the episode really gets into it, after it sets it up as a very dark and gloomy episode, it then shifts back into some normal content, but how it transitions into that auction is so beautiful. Now, this series is just wonderful. You know that. I come up here week after week and I showcase why I love this so much, but there's so many moments in this episode that tie back to past episodes. I mentioned last week how Elias' character development and how he grew into who he was, how he started feeling jealousy and when that started. But something gets brought up that happened around the same point when Chisei went to the land of the dragons and Elias was feeling cold and lonely and he couldn't figure out what was going on. There was a moment, which I didn't really mention it, I did know it happened, but I didn't really know what they were going to do with it, but they tie back to the moment where Elias basically kills a bird. A bird came to his house, he kills it, nothing after that. But then comes episode 19 where it gets brought up about the messenger. So this was a messenger bird that seemingly was trying to recruit maybe Chisei to this college, this magical college, but Elias doesn't want her to go. He wants her to stay with him, like nothing else. He doesn't want to share Chisei, and he doesn't want to send Chisei to this college, which obviously there's something going on there because it gets asked, like, why haven't you told her about this school? And he's like, well, she's not going, so there's no point. And then, of course, they have the argument, which, of course, Sorcerer and Mage not getting along, and it's a very heated moment, but I did like the comedy when they pulled away, and they're like, well, that was awkward, wasn't it? And I love that. So it's interesting how they tie back, so it ties up that loose end. That bird gets brought back, and that bird was like episode 12 or episode... Maybe it was in the first cour, but it was at least the early stages of the second cour is when that bird got killed by Elias. So at least that answers that question, and I'm interested to see how much more that's going to play a factor, because we only have a handful of episodes left, 5 or 6 episodes, I forget, I think it's a 24 episode series, so will that play a factor, or will that now be swept under the rug? Who knows? But still, I like how they brought that up and how they're kind of tying that up, but also Chisei doesn't seem to want to even go because she gets offered like, hey, you should come to our schooling and things like that. She's like, no, I have someone at home who gets lonely. So I thought that was kind of sweet to see that and just see how she is, but it does get brought up, humans change whether we like it or not, so will Chisei eventually change her mind and want to start doing things for her own? I mean, it's hard to really say, but I love the fact that characters are noticing how Chisei and Elias are changing, not just us, the viewer. I mean, when they're having the meeting discussing Joseph and what they need to do about the poachers and what they did to these dragons, characters are noticing the fact that Elias is responding to people in a way that he never used to do, mainly Chisei, because he doesn't want to get involved in this situation. It's dangerous, Chisei is very fragile, he has no reason it doesn't directly involve Chisei, so therefore he doesn't care that the dragons have been captured, and if he was going to get involved, they probably would have had to throw some sort of incentive. However, Chisei tells him, I want this, and then he agrees. And characters are like, did Elias just agree to because that girl said she wanted to? But then you also, when Chisei goes back to the auction that she was sold at, the people who sold her are noticing that Chisei's different as well. That's why I like this idea of change in this episode, is there's so many aspects that is showing. The tone, the characters, everything changed in this episode, but it did it by going back to other episodes and referencing them and showing the growth that has been going on throughout these 19 episodes, and it was beautifully done. But when that auction is going on, and then you see the dragon and the bidding's going on, then Chisei's talking to a mysterious woman, she's making some deal, only if they go above their limit then she can go in, like is she selling her soul, what's going on there? And then the dragon starts going insane, freaking out, and then the cage starts oozing, and then he transforms into not a normal looking dragon in my eyes, so it makes me wonder, did Joseph experiment on this dragon before shipping it off to the auction? Because we know Joseph likes to do his experiments, reference that cat episode and everything that happened there, so How that's going to play a factor, I have no idea. But Chise crying at the end because she's hearing all the thought process and all the emotions from her friend, this child. The dragon's just a child. That was painful. And I like how the episode starts and ends in this very brutal way, with kind of the center content being a bit more fun, a bit more relaxed, but it has the dramatic moments, but it eases you into this auction, and I thought it was remarkably well done. Like, I just can't wait to see how this is going to go, because Joseph is a bad bitch. Easiest way to say it. And I'm curious to see where this is going to go, the relationship between Chise, why Chise had that dream, into Joseph's past, where he's debating what his true name is. Obviously, his, like, sick and twisted persona. Is he being controlled by his spirit? Like, they have so many routes that they can go, and I have total faith that this series is going to deliver with this arc here. I can't wait to see where they're going to go next week. Voice acting on point. Chise definitely has to steal the show, but that dragon's voice actor as well, gotta give props there. There was some pain in that voice in the beginning and the end content. Man, this is an interesting episode to say the least. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of this episode? What was the most impactful moment? Was it the beginning? Was it the end? Or was there a different moment? What did you think? Let me know your thoughts down in that comment section below. And before you leave, smack that like button, share your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.